Topics of future meetings, what I would like to do for next, remember we talked about Apple Professional versus Apple Classroom and Securely. Can you like give us an update on that next time?
Sure.
And this is my kind of a personal vendetta of mine, you know, this is gonna come up.
Softball fields?
What am I gonna talk about?
Parking.
Yeah, let's get a parking update.
He's gonna call me as a witness.
Yeah. You are subpoenaed.
Please shuttle her in.
Anybody else have anything else they'd like to add for future meetings or recap anything that we talked about tonight?
No
Just,
recap.
We'll probably have to talk about Vision's group.
Vision Roof,
And there'll be a radio update
radio update.
and a smart board update.
We're doing smart boards, right?
There's no more you're getting put in, right?
Not currently.
Forget that.
So just those 4 items. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ed and Glenn.
Good job.
7:44. No, I mean, sorry, Ed and
Jason
Jerry.
is in here, so I would like to, can we start getting us paperwork? Because I'm gonna call to order the budget meeting
So low.
in about 1 minute. 30 seconds.
Someone's gonna get the cookies.
Yeah, thank you.
Jason,
where are you?
I'm just seeing who's leaving.
There you go.
They're leaving?
Remaining board members, Marissa, I'm assuming is on the phone watching us, so she knows who's here. Hey, Marissa. Okay. That's cute. Call the order roll call. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of the agenda. Wait a second.
Abstain.
All in favor? Approve as a bundle, the minutes of 3/8/23, 3/9/23. Oh, that was postponed. The public hearing on 3/9/23, 3/16 special meeting, 3/22 special meeting. All in favor? Okay.
So Ed and
Abstain.
Glenn,
And one abstention.
I haven't met this meeting.
and he abstains.
Any public participation?
Can I just make one comment? As I know I'm on the budget, but I don't know that it'll come up somewhere. I'm just wondering if at some point, I know that I made a request about the last day of school, but if based on budget financially, what would be a savings of not having kids come in that last day? So just as my
Okay.
public comment, because I
Have you
believe
figured
there,
it out already? Or you
No,
want
I'm
us to figure it
asking.
out?
I'm
Okay.
asking if that's
What the
something,
costs, what the savings would be.
Yep.
It's a Monday.
it's a Monday.
And I think there was some talk about, perhaps, training on the new reading program on that Monday. Because teachers are still obligated to come in.
But that wasn't budget, so I'm not.
Right,
just-
so I'm just putting it out there for everybody. I can't remember. Somebody brought. that up,
Mr.
a
Deacon
teacher.
had mentioned
He did,
about
Dr. Deacon did, yes.
the possibility of doing PD for teachers in the reading program on that 186th day, which would be Monday.
If there's nobody else in the public.
Thank you.
So that's all, just
Okay,
I'm trying to be efficient.
thank you, very efficient.
The last meeting was.
Oh, all right. Monthly financials. Scott, I think as far as the pages are all the same. Did anybody, I'm gonna kind of jump ahead and just ask if anybody that did look at it in advance had any questions.
I do have on this month's
Yes,
financials.
monthly financials.
I do have two.
Go ahead.
Just noticed that the overtime still for custodians is tracking. We were gonna look at the revenue side to see what the offset was last time we spoke in one of the other budget meetings. It was like $20,000 in overtime. That number is being carried at 86 or 87,000 in the next year budget. And then we're heading towards 140, 150 still.
Well, I don't know the revenue.
Yeah, that was the question. It was where's, there's an offset there. It doesn't show up because it's a revenue account,
You're
but
right.
It's
And
a
it goes- Yes, I will get that number, Jeff. I just thought I was gonna have a little bit more time, but we
That's okay.
flipped the
Yeah.
things, and, but I promise I will get that back. And actually, we did look it up, and I actually do have it sitting on my desk somewhere, so.
I may be barking up the wrong tree, but
No,
I
'cause
just
we did-
couldn't
'cause
tell.
we did have to look up to see what fund it was going into the, building use fund, so I will get you a number. on it.
The other one I had a question on was 5123, long-term certified subs.
What page?
It is on page 2 of 6,
Say the number again.
5123. It's at 224%.
5123.
Yes,
Long-term certified.
Oh, there it is.
subs.
Yep, sorry.
there's probably a backstory to it that I just have not been around long enough to know.
Yes, just bear with me a second.
Like, it doesn't
Okay,
have anything to do with the fact that we have more.
256. That's the, I'm sorry, 5123 long-term subs, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
That's because, partially because, or predominantly because the state, expanded on the FMLA.
Oh,
Act,
yeah.
which gives time off for,
Yeah, the
expanded it
PFL.
to other. I'm not totally up on the FMLA, but they expanded it to other family members or other members that could. Take it off, I believe, so that's increased above what we had originally budgeted for.
I didn't have time to look, but did we carry a larger number for next year since it's probably going to be a ongoing?
If you give me like 30
I'd say you
seconds, I
can-
can absolutely tell you that.
I
I just-
thought, well, we talked about subs and Kim, I don't want to ask you quite, you're there, okay. When we talked about we were gonna potentially have savings with ESS. On our long-term sub budget. line
Right,
item.
so this line, the long-term certified subs, the reason for this, when Scott and I kind of looked at what was driving that number. It's because of the fact that we have long-term certified subs that we've hired for people who are out on long-term leaves. And some of those long-term leaves end up being partially unpaid. Somebody's on maternity leave, part of that is paid, part of it's unpaid. So we do make up some of the cost savings in salaries. But you can't really predict, you can't predict like every year how many people are going to have babies or who might have surgery or whatever. So it's, but typically when if your long-term sub number goes up, somehow your salary is going down because somebody's out on leave. And oftentimes part of that leave might be unpaid because of FMLA.
So they're not building subs then. They're not like substitute building subs where we're just finding somebody who is willing to work
No,
on a
these are-
long-term commitment and fill in wherever they need to be.
No, these would be long-term certified subs.
Right.
So they
Okay.
either have to be certified as a certified teacher, or they have to be certified as a long-term sub with the state of Connecticut.
Okay.
Jeff, I'll have to get back to you on that number, because I'd have to add them all up, because they're not. in
No, it's okay.
one Line item, they're in, each individual school, so.
To answer your question on the budget for next year, Jeff, I think we either left it the same or it was a little bit lower because of the services, because we wouldn't be using Kelly services. We were gonna be using ESS and their fees were less, and Kim could probably speak better to that, but we did talk about that at one of our meetings and whether or not we needed more, but I think it was left as.
In the regular sub item, I believe that was true, but the long-term sub isn't an ESS thing, correct?
Correct.
A long-term sub is the
Oh, you want
FMLA
that
or
in there.
Long-term subs are our employees.
Oh, okay.
So we
Okay,
typically
sorry.
hire those as our employees.
But I think you're right. It did go down a little bit because John also said now that he has enough custodians, I'm gonna say this wrong. So he doesn't need the extra
long-term
there in the
sub
custodial.
Line
Yes,
item,
we had
okay.
addressed that,
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
but that's next year.
that's,
Okay.
and my,
Jason.
I had one more, 534004, it's the bottom of page 2. It had a huge jump this month, I noticed, when I was looking at it earlier today. Miscellaneous professional services, it went to double the budget from
Yeah,
150,000, 150%.
That's our fill-in for our payroll and benefits transition that's going on, so that's where we're charging.
But you're not paying the salary on the other side.
But we're not paying a salary, so it's coming
Okay.
out on the other side. It's
Got it.
just an accounting thing, and thank you for pointing it out, because I knew that one was gonna come up today, and I have to actually make the decision if I want to keep it there or put it up to the payroll line, so.
Great.
but that's just an accounting function, but. Thank you, Jeff. I did look at that this afternoon at like 1:30. I was like, I know someone's gonna ask about
No,
that.
no more questions. for me.
Jason,
On the budget report, I just noticed that non-certified is, there's still quite a balance in there. Is that just because of unfilled positions?
It's predominantly for the pairs, because we've had trouble filling pairs. this
So,
year.
okay.
So the majority of that number is the pairs.
354,000. Wow, okay.
Well, I think the pairs are more like,
Yeah, weird.
Well, no, it's not. No, it's under. We still have 354 projected left.
Jason,
Right,
which line
because
item
we
you
haven't
talking
been able to fill the.
Right, so 5112 on the second
about?
page,
Okay,
the uncertified, non-certified it's under,
mhm.
which is nice. I mean, but it's not nice because we don't have people
You don't have
to.
the people.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
the pairs are half of that.
Okay,
amount. All the others, the other half, so that's the majority of that.
okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Any other questions? Scott, did you have anything you wanted to point out specifically in the budget?
Not really.
No?
I think, I know that we've been very lucky in, student services and special ed, so I think we're gonna have some surplus there.
Oh, good.
I would just, like I said, in the full board of education meeting, I thought I was gonna have a little bit of time to like go line by line, but
Mhm.
due to the moving up of the meetings, I didn't get the opportunity to spend the amount of time that I wanted to spend on to really come back
Mhm.
to the board and say, this is where I think we're gonna land, so that's my
We'll
goal
do
for
that in
next
May.
month.
Yeah.
We will definitely do that for next month, and plus, we're gonna have another month of expenses too, so it'll be.
Right, it'll be.
And I'll have
free
more
to do.
granularity, and it'll be, I think it's gonna be a pretty good number of what we're gonna land on.
Great. Okay. Gary?
I haven't been here in a while, so maybe I missed it. Are we increasing sub pay next year or no? And I asked that because I know there's schools that are talking about increasing sub pay.
No,
by
but
quite a bit.
we did hire that
Yes,
company that
Whatever
will
it's called.
provide benefits. They have the option to purchase benefits and things like that, but I don't think
Training.
we went up. We didn't change the substitute pay again since last year when we did it. Jeff?
I asked you what it was, but I did get to ask my question. 5564. I didn't know what it was. It was just the straight tuition. Line item on page 4.
That's way underwater.
Yeah, but and
177?
it wasn't
Yeah,
last
so
year.
That's our,
So
that's our expulsions.
yeah, that
You
suit was
didn't
great.
believe me?
No, I know I got your answer, but I don't know why it's 4 times what it was last year.
Okay.
More
that's fine.
children misbehaving.
Yes,
We put pay.
we did. I didn't get a chance to check it, but it just seems.
Exactly what that is. That's unfortunate.
What's that? Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's so high.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
I just didn't know why.
Terrible.
Thank you for the answer as to what it was, but
You ask whatever you want.
thanks. Be quiet, Joe.
We're here to answer.
All right. 23-24 budget. We got the date for the meeting with the city. Everybody got the message. If you can make it, great. Sue, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, it's April 25th, 6 o'clock, and we all go. Fun.
Curtains up.
Present
You're Under Armour.
the updates.
Fun.
I mean, that's a silly question, but the email you sent out, could you just explain what that meant? Because I'm still kind of trying to get a grasp of this budget thing and what comes from the city and what doesn't. You said in 2022, 2023, there was a 1.x%.
Sure.
Oh,
1
what's the
million.
one about the question I asked you?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Okay, so we ask for a certain percentage each year, right?
Yep.
So like for this year, I started out, I can't even remember
Say
now.
4.5.
But right, say now it's, we know that what's going to the city is 4.39, right?
Okay.
Very, I don't think
Operating.
ever, right, operating budget has nothing to do with capital. But that's the number that we are moving forward. The board has now decided is going to go to the Board of Finance.
Correct.
I don't think any time I've ever been, no, it's very, very rare that a city will say, okay, that's perfect. We're going to just accept exactly what you said. So there's kind of a back and forth. They listen to what our concerns are, and then the city makes a decision, right? The Board of Finance
Yes.
makes a decision and gives us
What's
a
the
number.
number that was in
So
the
the
email? What did that-
number that was in the, sorry, I was just trying to give you context. So the number that was in the email was what they
What we got
allowed us to have last year. That was
They
the
only gave us
increase.
1.5%
So it's
last year?
1.1 billion
Wait
and
till
it
this
was
year.
1.5%
Yeah, that was a good year.
increase. Yes.
We put in for 5 last year, didn't we?
Uh,
We almost,
0.8.
we
Yeah, I
were
think-
close-
6, I think.
Something in the fours.
close to 5 and we got 1.5.
Zero, that's right about.
We haven't heard that.
Well,
though.
No,
Been-
I mean,
So-
I'm always hopeful. We've always gotten something. Even if it's just 600,000, but last year we got 1.1 million, so.
It was only,
As opposed to other districts that
it
get
was 1.5% of our
3,
request.
4, and 5%.
But to put that in context, that 1.1 million doesn't even cover our contractual increases.
Correct.
Right.
Which
Which is why we're
City
asking. for-
approved.
The city approved.
2 years ago.
Right.
Well, and
So they approve it, but they just won't help fund it.
right, so
Correct.
I think to give some context from the board, right, like for a long time, I think the Board of Education tried to self-limit its budget increases, and as a body, we've sort of decided not to do that as aggressively over the last few years, and the prevailing theory has been that we should simply ask for what we think we need to provide the perfect education. So that's part of why our increases come in high relative to what we're realistically going to get, because our sort of theory is always, and now has been that we should simply ask for
what we
think
need.
the kids need.
Sure.
Right.
And it's not high in comparison to the surrounding districts as far as a percentage goes.
Okay.
And what other, because there's been articles in the paper recently on what all the districts are getting. So we're pretty much in line
Yes.
with what everyone else is asking for.
Okay,
I've
thanks.
always thought we should fight for more. The city's never given it to us. And we're gonna have the same fight this year.
Mhm.
Board of Finance doesn't listen to us. Hopefully, the Republican side can fight harder. They got money because we don't seem to get anything. And it's a terrible process. I
Mhm.
mean,
It is a
and
terrible
then we get
process.
nothing for our buildings, and yet the buildings are collapsing. We don't own the buildings, the city owns the buildings.
Right.
We got nothing to maintain our buildings.
To maintain their buildings.
Their
That's the
buildings,
irony in the whole
correct.
thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
probably 2 million square feet of space. Million and a half.
It's very disheartening.
And let me,
Well,
and let's not add, I mean, I have a graph going back 20 years, but how much money we've
Plus the
been
ground.
able
Yeah,
to
you're right.
return due to cost saving measures in the district like the special ed stuff.
Yeah, we did the math a couple of years ago, and almost the entirety of the city's fund balance at that time had been built on Board of Education surpluses, because we have to give back.
So there are other things, but we have to get it back if we don't spend it.
If it's not spent by the end of the year.
Right.
Use
But
it,
we still have plenty of time to spend it.
Get ready to be creative. Last couple of weeks.
So I,
District-wide pig roast.
yeah, no. Let's not talk about this till after we get the city.
Yeah, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
All right, so that's it on the 23-24 budget. Captive funding. John, I'm gonna call on you first if you don't mind, because you spend a lot of time there.
I asked to have this put on
added to-
the
added to the
agenda, and I
agenda.
appreciate you putting it on the agenda. There's a little bit of a backstory. I won't go into it in detail because it's like the record of '97. We're trying to make up time, so
Mhm.
we need to get moving. But CAFTA has run a program called the Chow program, which is basically an Italian language and culture program for the last, I think this will be the 6th year. It's grant funded. It has been grant funded out of the Italian consulate in New York, which through a group called the IACE, the Italian American Culture, whatever. And this grant is provided for a program that has won a couple of awards and brought students to present their work in Agrigento, Sicily at the Pirandello Festival, Luigi Pirandello Festival. It's an annual event. They would have gone the 2nd year, but that was the COVID year. And this year, in the words of the Italian consulate, the public school system rejected, the grant was made, but the school system rejected it. And this is going to put about 30 kids out of a good program unless we allocate that money for this year. Now, they've been given letters of support for an ARPA grant that would cover next year because of timing. Rejecting this year's grant also costs the opportunity to apply for a grant for next year to continue this program. Worthwhile program. I have a couple letters that I'm not going to read. They're fairly long, from the Italian consulate and from Superintendent Lebowski praising this program. In fact, you just last week, I think you sent this to
For the ARPA grant, yes.
yeah, for the ARPA grant, but praising the program as a worthwhile program. If we can find the money for it this year, we can fund it this year and hope that grant funding can be found for next year. I say we, Torrington Public Schools. It's a program that has just done a really good job for the kids who take advantage of it. That's why.
How much is it?
$20,000. The grant was 20,000.
Okay.
We sent back 20,000.
So
Oh, that's it.
we just, yeah, right? I mean, we just talked about money. We should have potential savings at the end of the year, so maybe we can talk about it when Scott brings back numbers to us to take into consideration.
When does it need to be paid?
Well, okay, here's what the problem is. That program would have started, I think, already. It's not too late. If the board, if we can find the money and the board allocates that money in the April meeting,
Okay,
a
so
couple
not
weeks, 3
wait till
weeks
May.
from now, the program is all set to go. It was all set to go,
Okay,
but without the money, it's not going to go.
Right.
But if we can find that money and vote that money in a couple
for
weeks
our
from
regular
now,
board meeting.
well, because we can't, this
Right.
committee can't do
Right.
anything. But I guess what I'm doing is asking if the budget committee will direct the administration to find that money and put it in.
Yeah, Gary, you have a comment,
I
but
was
yeah,
gonna do that, so,
right,
yes.
yeah, I would
So,
agree.
so just, I'm sorry, because I know the program exists and I remember reading about it, but I don't know the ins and outs. The students wouldn't like be penalized or something for this late start, right? They'll have full
Oh, no,
participation.
no,
in
it'll
the
just
program.
run later in the year
Okay,
and maybe be scheduled more days a week than it had.
To catch
right,
up.
but there may
Yeah,
still be the
it can
potential
be-
for the
It
travel.
will be the full program and there's the potential for whatever else is available to them this particular year.
I'm in.
Yeah, me too. Any objections?
No.
Is it 30 kids, did you say?
About 30 kids, yeah.
Are they already selected or are they, how does that
You know, I
selection
can't
process
answer
work?
That question.
I think
Is it
they
open to
join
all of
under
our
the board.
students?
They sign up for it. They have the chance to sign up.
It's
Yeah.
a choice.
Yeah,
Okay, and sorry,
ahead.
since we just sort of all collectively made a decision without so much input, you know, what's your sense of sort of the district's ability to find some $20,000 in relatively short order for this? I mean, is it going to be a big problem? Are we going to have to, you know, lay somebody off to find it? I assume no, but you know, where do we look at this from your end of things?
There's funding.
Okay, so it shouldn't be a big deal to find it. Okay.
Good, that would be good.
So then just my other question, just maybe if we can get it for the next meeting would be, can we run the concurrent program of what the Italian consulate would fund? Is there any problems with
If
that?
the $20,000, no matter where it comes from, will fund the program. If we're not going to get it from the Italian consulate.
But the Italian consulate wouldn't have any problem with us.
Oh, no,
Running
they,
their
in fact, the
program.
letter from the consulate says it'd be tragic if we didn't continue the program because it did so much good. As I say, it's a longer letter. I'd be glad to send it out to anyone who wants it, but.
I think it'd be good for people to see it.
Yeah, do you want to share it with us? Sure.
Sure. I'll send it out. I'll get it out, attach an email
Sure.
tonight and.
Yeah, thank you. Right, so, I guess we're all in agreement that we move this to the full board for April.
Yes.
Yeah. so we have to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Facility fees, I had asked Sue to add this, just for some clarification. I think there's 3 committees here are impacted by this, budget, policy, and facilities. So the facilities policy, which is that policy in itself. The fees, John, you presented us with a great schedule of fees, right? Which you did a ton of research on it. My thought on it is, and I don't know what everybody, I'll just ask for everybody's opinion. if we separate the fee schedule from the policy language, then we don't have to adjust the policy in the event we have to make a fee, like say electric goes up or gas goes up or something goes up or down or whatever. We want to change one of the fees. It doesn't have to go to policy and have a full policy review, which sometimes takes a while. No offense. None taken.
Getting worse.
So if we keep the fees separate, then they can move forward with the policy, put the policy in place. John can start with the fee schedule sooner than later. Go ahead.
Just quick to that, when I did make the presentations of policy committee in the, and we're working on that crosswalk now.
Right.
In crosswalking these two things together, one of the things I had put in there was that the fee schedule was separate, that it could be made, changes could be made at any point in time without going to policy committee,
Okay.
that.
So if it's just a standalone schedule, we just vote on it as a full board. Yes, we agree to these fees or we don't, right?
Is there anything in the current policy that states that the policy determines fees?
No, but they're revisiting the policy. So and I don't think it would. I don't think they're gonna change it to say the policy determines fees. So if we keep it separate,
No, it probably just says that the.
No,
refer to
It
the fee
references-
schedule.
It references the exactly. fee schedule,
It-
correct.
It
correct.
references the fee schedule, but it
Correct.
doesn't say the policy sets the fees.
Right.
Okay.
No,
So
policy doesn't set
conveniently, our
fees.
meetings were flip-flopped this month, so we can say, let's send this to policy to coordinate a policy.
I don't think policy should.
We don't, no, we don't
They don't
get
need
this.
this.
No, what I'm saying is that whatever policy they're changing, make sure it doesn't impact this, and then everything would be good.
For our
end of
full
the month.
board meeting, correct? Yes, absolutely. Like we could get
Yeah.
this through, once you finalize the policy language, which should be kind of
So
easy.
Did you say what?
I would like to make a suggestion though on this. The fees and stuff look good to me. But my concern is, I would like us to consider not charging some of these fees to nonprofits that benefit 10 or more % of our student body. Because they're providing a benefit to
To our
our students.
students. Right.
Torrington students, though, not, it would have to be 10% of Torrington students.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying
is-
to just think of a number so
Anyone
that
meet
it's.
that standard?
Right, which is part of the policy,
Pal.
because that was.
No,
in
but
the
I'm saying it would
policy.
need to be on this thing if we.
Oh, on the fee schedule
Yeah.
itself and in the policy, the policy
10%
states
of the
that.
kids in the program would be Torrington
Torrington
kids.
kids.
That was the line by 10%.
I would think it-
I'm meaning 10% of Torrington students
Okay.
population.
That's only PAL.
No, it's several programs, Torrington Youth Soccer, PAL,
At advance.
our after-school program.
Basically, everybody.
Ed Advance isn't.
I was gonna say, so how
That's
much-
a question.
No.
What about the after-school program? Who runs that?
I'd advance.
So we, right, but we have a morning program, we have an afternoon
Right.
program. that
Are they
also have to-
nonprofit?
Yes,
Yeah.
They are?
They're basically.
They're a red.
But now, but they not, and I just want to put this out here, they charge a fee for those services, right?
but it's a reduced fee because they
still a
don't
fee.
have to, sure,
Right.
but it's
But they're-
a much
Just
reduced.
hear me
fee
out.
because they
It's a
don't have to pay.
reduced fee. And if we're not gonna charge them for the facility. Then. I mean, I feel like if they're collecting
Can I-
fees for it.
So you're
I
saying,
think-
you're saying if part of the fee is to cover the facility charge,
We're
then
not
then
charging them.
their fee
So
should
thank
be
you.
reduced further down
They-
because
we
we're
can
not
reduce
charged
Their fee, but there should still be a fee. That's just my own thought. That's my thought.
their
I'm
fee
just
being
putting it out there.
charged.
Currently, are nonprofits only charged for the custodian?
I think it depends.
Yeah,
think it's been all over the
I do
place.
think it
Yeah.
depends on the scale of, if it's a one-shot deal, we're only using your building one day. I think sometimes nonprofits are always charged, but if it's a day-to-day, students, I mean, you're talking a program where it's 4 days a week, or it's 2 days a week, or it's, I mean, that's a huge service to our.
The community, that's true,
yeah,
that's true. They are.
Which is just.
And I wouldn't want to see, I'm not
It's just-
suggesting because I would want to see the fees go up associated with it, but also if they're making I'm just putting it, say they're making $1 million a year, that's a lot of money. if that's what they're making. I don't, John, you're on the board, so you could talk to
I
that.
have no idea what.
No, but I don't really think it's a moneymaker.
It's not, no.
It's probably close to
Paying a fortune for it, so. I
Right,
mean,
and it's a,
The
it's,
basis program?
yes,
The basis?
so,
it wasn't called basis then. It was just after school at East School.
This is not the same program.
So just let me do a little clarification on that. We do have language in the custodial contract
Mhm.
that some of these groups are not charged custodial fees. So there is specific language that names certain things like PTO and these different programs
Right.
that come into our school that are not charged the
So we
custodial
do
fee.
absorb those costs,
We do.
right? Okay, which is fine.
Yeah.
Ed, and then
Yeah,
Jeff,
just a quick
and
suggestion
then Jason.
to sort of
No, Mike,
simplify,
it's not up.
to sort of simplify what I think Fiona is getting at. My interest, and I brought this up repeatedly when around surrounding this, right? My interest really is to not be charging fees to people who are really doing some sort of fundamental good to our school, for our school community. So that would be my suggestion essentially, is that if your program or event is specifically serving the students of Torrington Public Schools, regardless of how many of them, right, then I don't think we should charge fees. And so that way we can charge fees for community organizations, church groups, et cetera, who are using our facilities because they need a place to be. Although I think we have to be careful how much. But I'm not really that invested in a non-moneymaker being charged to organizations who are in our buildings because they're serving our students. I guess is, I think the simplest and easiest way to create this carve out that we all, I think, want to create for people who are doing this essential good for our kids.
I agree. I just wanted to make a point that if they're making money, then it's just a little concerning, but whatever.
But we always have, I don't know how it works with you, but have we always complained every year about the overtime for the custodians? How much of this is, how much of our time is non for profits? Oh,
Well, a lot of it earlier was
Most of
because
it-
you were understaffed. So you had guys working
well, no.
Well, yeah.
You can
Yeah,
answer.
so I mean,
last year.
yeah, so some of the, like the high school overtime right now, right, a lot of that high school overtime was because of this new building project, right? We had to absorb some time, but most of what you see in overtime in all of your buildings, very few of it is, a little of it is what I give them for overtime. I don't say, hey, listen, we got a project to do, they're gonna do it on overtime. Very little of that's happening. There's contractual overtime that they have in building checks. But for the most part, what you see in there in overtime, that's all stuff that, you know, that they're doing for these particular groups that we do charge for overtime.
Okay.
But if you have a Saturday, let's say a PAL game, I have no idea how it works, Saturday PAL game. Are we allowed to not pay them overtime on Saturday?
No, you have to.
We have to.
Right, we do.
But are we paying that or is Pell paying it?
right now, Pal is not paying it,
Right.
but groups like the soccer, right, who are coming, that's really been our moneymaker this year. Because that's like,
Well,
But that's an adult league. That's not a
yes,
kid.
Oh,
that's-
right.
that's
Why are
really
we charging
different.
them and not Pal?
because
Okay,
that
because
is
it's
an
adult.
adult,
Right.
right,
Okay.
But like
They're happy to
a
pay.
dance team
Right.
group,
right,
they pay the
they pay the facility.
facility
Yeah.
fee and the overtime for.
But those are all for profits. I think that's the big
Correct,
difference.
right.
They're
Correct.
profitable.
Correct,
As long as it covers.
but churches are not for profit.
I know, but I think we have to be really
Yeah.
careful. So we have this church from Holland running a program in one of our schools. How many of our students are actually participating in that program? You're gonna have the new building, which is gonna be really attractive for people to want to use it.
Right.
I mean, I just feel very strongly that our building should benefit our citizens and
Right,
our kids
and our
and
kids.
not people from
Right.
all over. Because you could end up pigeonholing yourself where the buildings are booked all the time and that our people can't use the building.
Well, who books them? Who books them? I'm not sure how it works, so.
John. Oh, the application.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, just a quick overview of how it works. Somebody would put an application in for an event. It goes first to the building, at which time they check it against their calendar to make sure that the space that they're requesting is available. At which time the administrator signs off on it. Then it comes down here to Midgeon, and what I do is I look at, you know, what it is contractually for overtime for custodians and whatnot, then I sign off on it.
That's always good.
No alcohol.
So you can control that. Because it comes through you.
right.
Whether we get. in
But I
trouble
think
or
we
not.
have to decide, I mean, I think it has to be in the policy and also listed
Yeah.
here.
I just don't think you should be having them have to debate with everybody if they qualify
Right.
to pay or not pay. I think it
Right,
should be
right.
very clear. I
Right,
mean, to me, if a kid can pay $40 to play basketball and be off the streets every day after school for 5 months, that's a benefit to the school system, I feel.
mhm.
So any fees we pass on, there's probably 500 or 600 kids participating in that. It's a lot of our kids. So I think we should consider it, but I think if we start doing all the small groups, it's gonna be impossible, because we just physically don't have enough room.
So what would you suggest? I'm not.
I mean, that's why I just came up
analysis.
with the 10%, because if you're benefiting 500 or more kids, I think that's something that we should weigh out.
I would say just to, if we're, and this is the last thing I'll say that really should be said at a policy meeting, I promise. Is that if we're worried about overbooking and stuff like that, we can certainly give some level of discretion to somebody at central office to say, no, your group of 10 can't book the cafeteria for that day because, a classroom is suitable for what you need, and I want the cafeteria to be available for a larger group. In the same way that a restaurant will tell you the same thing. If you want to book their back room that seats 30 for 10 people, they'll say, well, no, it's a Saturday night and I want to put 30 people in my back room.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's twofold. It's that, plus it's wear and tear on the buildings,
Mhm.
When you don't have great
Right.
buildings, people aren't fighting over it. But I think when the new building opens, I think it's gonna be
Right,
a different
right.
story.
Right.
What a great policy discussion here at the budget committee.
Jeff,
I have 3 fast questions. When last time you gave us the facility use comparison, it was a by building fee for the gymnasiums. It varied because we have small gymnasiums and big gymnasiums. Are we going away from that? Are we going to go back? Is that fee structure going to be more reminiscent of the size of the building? Like you said, the Southwest gym is tiny compared to THS.
Yeah, that really, it doesn't, it actually, in this proposal here, I did not spell that all out in this proposal here. I just kind of gave you the somewhat of the generic or your higher sides. But yes, in the fee schedule, the way it's laid out, it is per building, and the fees are generators based on size of spaces.
Okay.
So obviously, you're going to spend more money to go to a high school gym than you are to Southwest.
That's still your recommendation. Second question, we talked about the actual cost of the custodians, taxes and everything, so that the complete hourly rate of a custodian to be charged out to these groups is the 46 and 61 the actual cost, or is it still their base hourly rate? Because
So that's a contractual cost, and I don't, what's not in that is fringe and bennies.
it doesn't depend, it depends on their level.
This is the cost that's based out of the contract. But in that cost, fringe and bennies
Mhm.
are not figured into that
Okay.
cost in the contract. That
Nor
is
payroll
an additional and above and
So
beyond.
we would have
nor
to
payroll
wait
taxes.
No
Right.
payroll taxes, right? This is just the number that's in the contract.
I would suggest to the group that we encompass all of those fees if we're going to charge somebody, so that we're not, if there's a group we're trying not to give the building for free to, they should cover our expenses. Last question. I know that for many of these events we have in the custodial contract, somebody has to be called in when there's another event going on. So you have to bring an extra person in if it's above and beyond the daily duties. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, right. So above and beyond the daily duties, the way it's set up now is if it's a weekend event, the night custodians have first choice of overtime for the weekends. And if it's a nightly event, Monday through Friday, the day custodians have their choice of doing that.
Are we obligated to that extra manpower for the programs that everybody else has mentioned, bases and that? So are we bringing people in 4 days a week for those, or is that just kind of?
There, again, that goes back to, there is contractual language that spells out specifically what gets overtime for custodians and what does not.
So
Right.
Gotcha.
So I have to follow that contract. I can't delineate off of that contract.
I think it might be helpful, maybe we can go look it up, I guess, to know what those groups are that are exempt. It might help direct the group and what we can afford to give away and
I
not.
can bring that section to the policy committee.
Great, thank you, John.
It's
guess we're
also
coming
like
to your
Girl
meeting.
Scouts, Boy Scouts, there's,
Oh, yeah.
right?
'Cause the
Girl
Scouts
and
use
Boy
the
Scouts Still use the
facilities,
schools,
right?
right?
Did we, can
Yes.
we get a list of who uses regular, like the regular list of who uses the facilities every day? Do you have that?
Because they have to fill out, they still have to fill out.
It's,
facilities use.
yeah, it's, you want every facility, every person that uses it? This is a, I mean,
It
it's,
sounds like a big project.
yeah, it's a pretty huge, it's a pretty
Well,
huge project.
It should be, I mean, if it's that much, then why don't we have it like in a spreadsheet or something and just track who's,
Well,
did they pay,
Each one
what
of
do
the,
they
each one of the
charge?
buildings, each one of the buildings keeps a calendar, so I can pull a calendar from each one of the buildings and. you can see it
I
that
feel like
way.
in order for us to move forward, we have to have a handle on who's renting the facility and when and where, which facility.
And
I
are
don't
they
know how we
paying
could
or
go
are they
forward,
not?
yeah, and are they paying? Who's tracking if they're
I-
paying or not?
I would counter that, that just leads to us almost cherry picking who we like, and we should really. stay
No, I'm not
focused on-
suggesting,
We should really stay focused
Mhm.
on what types of activities or.
can I just finish?
Well,
I'm
you-
not
you-
suggesting we cherry pick anything. What I'm suggesting is we have that list that can help policy identify who are the people using the buildings. Not saying they can't use it, but we want to capture the nonprofits that are supporting the students versus the nonprofits that are supporting the senior citizen. I mean, there's so many different scenarios.
But
So-
not that we need specific names. we
No,
just need
I
by
know.
Category.
Even that category, but I just feel it's kind of, it's really confusing to me how we don't have a list of who's renting our facilities, how much we're charging them, and if they're paying us.
Well,
Well, we
like I
do.
said, it's done.
We don't
We do.
though.
No, we do.
No,
It's
it's
in,
done-
okay, so
it's-
then
It's,
it
it's
shouldn't be a
done per
project.
building, right? So each building keeps track of their own
Okay.
schedule. All right, and so I can pull the list from each building.
Okay,
It,
so if we could see that, and then we can look at of those people that regularly use it. Where do they fall in the fee category? And is there an organization or a category of organizations that we're missing that shouldn't be charged or should be charged, and I'm trying not to get trapped in my words here because I'm
Yeah.
not cherry picking anything. I just want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. And and I'm not suggesting it's a money-making thing, but if it can produce some revenue for the out-of-town churches that are using it, even, whatever it might be, if it goes back to, we'll figure out where it goes from there, but it's just, we've talked about it too much already. It seems very basic to me. We should be able to come up with a list. Here are the fees, and this is how it's applied, period. And just be done with it.
Scott, you can probably pull from the revenue report, right? How do you invoice them?
He doesn't.
Well, somebody must have been.
Erica, the
Erica
administrative
does.
assistant
Yeah.
Erica invoices. So she's actually the one that receives the forms.
Right.
And then she knows who gets invoiced, who doesn't. And then
Okay,
she
so
does
can we
all
ask
that.
her how she tracks it?
That might be the easiest.
Yeah, she has the invoices tracked.
I think
Yeah.
let's
Could
talk
we see
to,
her list of how they're tracked? How it's tracked?
Yeah, I don't know that her list is specific to all of the groups in general, right? Because there's a lot of groups that are in-school
Don't pay.
groups that get, when she sees,
So give us, let's do this.
when she sees THS choir wants to use the room.
Mhm.
All right, she just tears off the form. I approve it. She tears the form off and sends it back to the custodian so that they can book it. There's no
Okay.
fee or anything required with that. And I don't know that she's specifically tracking. I don't believe that she's specifically writing down and tracking each one of those because there is no fees. Only
Okay.
the ones that she's doing fees with that she's
Okay.
doing.
So to fill in those gaps, this is gonna hopefully be as simple as it is in my head. To fill in those gaps, get us a list from each facility of who's using what. And when, their calendar, their schedule, and then the admin schedule and what she's collecting and how that goes, and we'll just combine them. Just send it to us in an email and I'll look at it and do it myself.
Non-Board of Ed organizations, right? Choirs,
I mean-
Board of Ed.
Yeah, it doesn't need the PTO and things like that. You're allowing them anyways. It's in this.
Right, it's just,
Well, that's the objective.
But school
Yeah.
groups have first
Well, that's my.
dibs.
Right.
right, that's the other thing, like, how do we, if you're not
Yeah.
tracking it,
There's no check.
I'm,
But overall, what's the objective?
I'm gonna just say what I believe. I mean,
it's objective. Are you saying I have no objective? The objective is to-
Comprehensive list.
of seeing who's using the facilities, how will it fall into how do we build that into our policy? Are we missing anybody on here to not charge? Are we missing anybody to charge? I don't understand why it's so, what's so difficult about the request?
The statement,
it's such an
the
issue.
statement I think we're trying to make is that this group, from listening to all of us, inherently wants to make sure that general budget dollars aren't being spent on an organization that doesn't benefit our kids, which takes services out of the district. So the taxpayers paying money to run these buildings and they're not benefiting our kids. We shouldn't be giving those services away for free. If we have an outside vendor who wants to use it, we're open to it, but we need to at least recuperate or possibly profit on some of those fees.
Mhm.
Is that a fair statement for the group?
It is a fair statement, and I don't understand why it's an issue.
There's your goal.
Well, no, the goal. So then, I mean, I don't know how specific we can get. We're not gonna be so specific that we pick. As
We
said.
just said it
No, I know
doesn't
that,
have
I
to
know
be
that.
that specific.
But that's a
But-
policy discussion anyway.
Yeah,
That's
I
not
just-
budget discussion.
Right.
I'm just
I-
asking for a list of information, which I don't think is that outrageous.
Yeah, for 10
I haven't,
Thank
I
you.
haven't been here. I'm not familiar with the backstory. So I'm trying to figure out why we're going through this for so long. That's all. I'm not sure.
I think
I didn't want it to be this long.
what Susan's trying to do is, I think, identify what our exposure is by giving away free stuff to non-people. If we're gonna do that, are we
There may,
increasing our custodial overtime budget
That's why I
excessively
asked
for
about
no
the
reason?
overtime. I wasn't
That's it.
sure.
She just wants to know our exposure. And to get that, we need a list of who's using it, and who we charge and who we're not charging.
Sorry. So
Go ahead.
just, so I think the other issue that we may have, which we probably will have, is there's a lot of groups that want to use our buildings, but they
Mhm.
can't afford to. So I think that's.
and we can address that too.
We'll
Yeah,
have to
there's
figure, so they won't be on the list, but if it was affordable, they might
be able to use
come
it.
into the fold, right?
Mhm.
So I think it's just, we have to, I think, set what's priority for us as far as. What we
I'll
want
look
the
at it
buildings
myself
to
and put
be
it in a
as far-
spreadsheet.
yeah.
If it makes it easier for everybody, it'll take 10 minutes. Go ahead, Sue.
Okay, so Erica Johnson keeps the invoices. She has it. She's super organized. Month to month, we know exactly who's being billed, what
Mhm.
they paid up to a certain point. I think that's a good place to start.
Sure,
For
yeah,
budget,
yeah.
because it's about dollars and cents.
Right.
And then we can talk with the buildings about how many other events. It gets a little messy at the middle school and high school, obviously, because they have.
They have more
events.
space.
But I think
Right.
if we can just have them say, okay, number of times a school event, we're not gonna go through PTO and.
No, then I think we
You don't
said
even
that, not
need that.
Girl
piece.
Scouts, Boy
That's all
Scouts,
just-
no,
Right,
because
those,
none of that.
well, but Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts aren't,
Yeah,
that's not-
But their support, but they're,
I know, but I think we just have to be careful because then you're starting to separate it out. I'm just talking if there's a school event, like there's a choir concert or there's a
Mhm.
band concert, or there's that versus Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or because otherwise then it
Right.
ends up sounding
What is
like
that was going?
there's preferential,
Right.
whatever. So
Laura was caving in.
Boy
we
Scouts
can
and
say nonprofit, or
Right.
whatever.
I was putting Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in the same category as Pal. They're doing things for our
Right,
students.
for your students.
And I
yeah.
don't think that's cherry picking. I'm not saying,
Well,
and you
no,
keep
but-
saying that, and that's making
Because,
me
because
nuts.
you're
I'm
looking
not,
for
I'm
groups
just
that you
using-
like. That's
No,
what you're
I'm
doing.
not. I
That
am
is
not.
exactly what you're doing.
I'm not
No, I
looking
don't
for
believe
groups
that.
that I like. I'm
All right,
not-
point of order here. Let's,
No, I
too
would-
much.
I'm putting it out there that I don't have any specific groups I like. I'm saying whether it's a Girl Scout, Boy Scouts, Pal, PTO. You want me to name every organization in town, I'll do that to prove I'm not cherry picking.
I'm not-
I want to
but
give people the opportunity to use the facility if they can. That's all. I'm not cherry picking anything.
Right, but,
So stop.
okay, okay. I know.
What?
But- Okay,
These are
Motion to adjourn.
I know.
Not on the.
You're asking, what I think you're asking for and what Ed thinks you're asking for is specific names of groups that are using.
No, I'm not.
No, I
Okay.
don't-
I've said that. I am not
Correct.
asking
Okay,
for
correct.
specific
Okay,
names.
right.
type of
So
use.
what we want
I was
is
using that
type
as
of
an
use,
example.
correct, we
Okay.
want type of use, so you don't need a spreadsheet of
Right.
every single one that's going to use it.
Yeah.
Yep,
You want by
Okay.
type of group.
Yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead,
like,
John.
then we could say
We can
it's
finish.
like
59
adult,
typo.
adult
Yeah.
volleyball uses it on
Yes.
Friday
I
nights,
just
but
have
if there's
a-
something
just
else
a
going on, they
simple-
don't,
Just
so.
a simple question. what time frame do you want to see this? You want to see
From
a month? You want to see 6 months? You want to see what?
1939.
from January,
God, wrote it down, 1930.
You're gonna have to rely on.
Year.
Here.
from.
All right, this is-
After school year.
Yeah.
So it's.
And I
Remember, there was no average in COVID, so.
I know,
that's what-
I know.
So.
So,
So this school year
School year.
from, so I can
Right.
pretty much give you most everything from the start of the school year to. I can go through March. I can actually go probably into May because we're pre-booking things.
not with invoices though.
Not
Okay,
with
so I can't
invoices,
give you
but-
that.
We don't need the invoices,
No,
just,
but I,
just
because
like.
I do
Through
want
budget,
budget
I know that,
information. I
right.
do want budget I do want financials,
Right,
yes.
but yes, the use, we'll do that separate. We'll do the invoices separate.
because the use, if a church group
Well, you're
uses
gonna
it,
need that.
I know, but if a church
That's
group
it.
uses it every Sunday,
Yes.
I just need to know the.
you know the cost.
Yep.
You first?
It's all good.
She was first.
She was, go ahead, Fiona, Glenn, and then that's it.
I don't wanna create work. To me, it almost seems like,
Late for that.
no, if each school gave us their calendars, we could just look through it and see what
Thought
groups are
that's what we
using it.
agreed.
And
was
then
gonna
the
happen.
budgetary thing, if she already has the spreadsheets, just hand
Hand it
those out.
over. I
Then
think
no
that
one's
makes
creating anything. Like we can look through and see what the building's been used at for. I think that'll give people a better understanding
Thought
of.
that's
We'll
what
send
we
you a
agreed on.
sample first, Sue, and then you
Sure.
can let us
Yeah.
know if
Yep.
that's what you want.
Go
But
ahead,
just
Glenn.
if it already exists, use that.
Right, which it does. He said, they both said it does. So let's just, and I'll put together my own spreadsheet with what.
Right.
To be able to build the financial part. Go ahead. Go.
What I see here is all indoor stuff. What about our outdoor facility? Do we charge fees for that?
There is field use fees. Very few organizations actually use the fields from an outside perspective.
In the future, we may see a lot more.
Yes.
Right, right.
At this point, very
If you
few.
build it, they'll come.
If we have lights.
Yes.
I don't know if we've approved them. Well, it's an all.
So now, we haven't approved it yet.
Yeah, I did once at the Little League.
Well, maybe you. That
90,
was it. I don't know if maybe we should just put it
99% is in our buildings.
outdoor field use for
It's
maybe.
very limited because our
that in
sports
3
teams
years.
absorb so much of field time.
Do we still have to use custodians if we have people outside? Do
There
we still need contractually,
is-
do we need a custodian on site?
There is, so yes, there is, if there is, like, all athletics, actually, that's why you have a separate line item for athletics and custodian, because that's part of their contract. So yes, we do still use custodians.
Or if they have a tournament on our turf field, we
Yep.
charge them.
Yep.
Yes, there's a fee.
What's that? Outdoor stuff.
Topics for future meetings, monthly financials. Whatever the budget is, the balances are looking like, Scott, at the end of the year.
Yep.
Which May would give us some good numbers. You're gonna do that anyway. Perhaps an update on the grants. Although I don't know if that's gonna be facility. The two kind of just cross over. Just keep us posted on the grant
That's why it's the
applications.
same night.
Yeah.
Security grant.
I also would be interested in what it would look like for savings if we didn't have class on the last day of school. So what, we pay subs per day. What would what's that? Buses, subs, whatever it is that we pay on a daily basis. If we didn't have class, but just
Buses are-
facility or faculty in the building. Yeah, there's John's money for the Italian club. What that would look like.
And the
Is-
income side of the OT custodian comes back to.
And the income, right, the
The
income side?
The
of
revenues.
custodial?
Revenue.
Yes, right. And
Use
that
fees.
too.
Which is gonna tell us who rents the building.
Never again will that be on this budget. This agenda, never again.
We're doing topics of future meetings, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you have another one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We
Parking?
see Sue and Ed in the act again.
I'm not very good at fighting.
Yes, you are.
Funny.
No, I'm really good at arguing.
There is a difference.
I'll train,
That's not
I'll
the
train
bitch
you.
in the
I'll
guy.
train you.
Yeah. Comments for the good of the order, just Do I dare? Go ahead.
No, I'm actually gonna be very quick, but,
Okay,
but for anybody booking out past July 1 now, can we just let them know that the fees are subject to change and they're not locking into a fee or?
Yeah.
Actually, in the proposal that I submitted to the committee, it actually, that was actually on the
Yeah.
new fee schedule and stuff, that fees were subject to change.
Perfect.
It should be part of the policy anyway.
Yeah.
okay.
I-
Glenn?
It was,
No, I don't have
it's in, so when we do a crosswalk, it'll come over.
Sound good?
Soccer's gonna be done.
Sue,
So-
any comments?
All good, thank you.
John?
Good.
Kim?
All good.
Sue?
Just that when you're thinking about June 19th, there are other things to consider that are not necessarily related to budget, right? That the city, I believe, is planning some events. There's a parade, that sort of thing. So if students were not in school, they'd have the opportunity to attend some of those things.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, Juneteenth.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right, okay.
Oh,
Thanks, Sue.
yeah.
Yeah.
Scott,
All set, thank you.
Jason?
Have a great April vacation. Much
Vacation.
needed
We're not teachers.
April vacation.
We have no Coachellas. We have no meetings, so that is our.
Right, so you do have a vacation.
I just want to note that Glenn forgot the comments for the other order.
I did, I was just.
No,
That's a different meeting, Gary.
I know. I'm just-
Helen, John, a little bit. Very good, okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Josh,
Okay, Ellen.
any comments?
8:40. Glenn and Gary.
You still stayed under an hour, I think.
Oh,